Good evening. It is Monday, the 14th of April, 2025. It is 8:30 p.m. UK time. This is part of my journey, show 54. It still blows my mind that I'm on show 54 of this series because it doesn't feel that long ago that we did part 45, where we celebrated all the amazing shows before that and had an interview with Sam Tweaks. But here we are, show 54. This is someone who I probably first got introduced to when he came to one of our events in London. We did a We Love 45's event, the Strong Room in Shoreditch, and he was there and went to some other events. And I think Mojax was doing an event as well. Got introduced by Sam Tweaks and then sort of followed each other quite a lot since then. And I asked him to do a mix for 45 Day, and he's done an amazing video mix, which is going to be part of the 45 Day live stream for 2025. And I thought it'd be great to have a chat and get to know a little bit more about him. So, DJ Rasp.
Hello.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for taking the time. And I'm glad we're able to sort of get to spend an hour or so finding out a bit more about you. So thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thanks for having us. It's an honor to be here.
So I always ask my guests who basically gave them their first musical influences, because it always interests me. It's normally family, but it's always interesting to see who first got someone into music. So for you, who was it from a young age that first introduced you to music?
Well, music was always around us as a kid. My mum and dad used to, have the radio on, and they'd have like records and tapes and stuff. We'd listen to a lot of cassettes in the car. Queen, Elkie Brooks, Brian Ferry, all of that type of thing. My granddad was into music. He'd always have like the radio on when we'd go round to his house to visit him, and he'd always be playing like jazz stuff. It's maybe when I got to like high school, started taking a real interest in music then. A friend of mine come to our school. He was from London originally, and he come to our school. I'm from St Helens. I was living in St Helens at the time. And my friend John, he would bring cassettes with him on his Walkman. And I'd be like, oh, what are you listening to? And he'd show me like BDP, Big Daddy Kane, Bismarcky, NWA, Ice-T, all of this cool stuff, Hijack. I'd be like, wow, I've never heard this type of stuff before. And this would be about 1990.
So how old would you have been then?
12.
Yes, and you're hearing this. So he's playing this on cassette.
He would record the albums, so he'd buy them on vinyl and then dub them onto tape. And then what he'd do, he'd borrow me these tapes. I got myself a Walkman, and then I was hooked. I was hooked on the beats and, the rapping and the scratching and, yeah, just the whole vibe of it.
Are you seeing any of this sort of music on the TV?
Yeah, there was something on BBC Two, the Energy programme.
With Normski?
Normski, yeah.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. So you'd see that. You'd see people turn up on Wogan, like Cutmaster Swift scratching and stuff, So yeah, there was bits and bobs on top of the pops too, round about that time. And then eventually, I got introduced to like MTV and Yo MTV Raps a little bit later on, so you could see all your heroes videos and stuff, which was quite cool.
You're getting and hearing this music through tapes that you're being borrowed. Does there come a time when you start buying the records yourself? And how are you sourcing this sort of music if you are?
Probably in the same year, actually. So I start buying vinyl and cassettes. And my auntie gives me this hi-fi system. It's got a turntable on it, a radio, and a cassette player all in one unit. I have that in my bedroom. So I started buying cassettes, LPs, 12-inch singles, 45s, building up a little collection of all kinds of different types of music, mainly hip-hop though, but there was other bits like reggae and some dance music and some pop and stuff.
Obviously, you've referenced 45s from a sort of young age. What sort of 45s were you getting at that time in terms of artists, and what, was it just sort of the pop stuff and the stuff that was in the charts, or something else?
Sometimes you'd see it in Woolworths, really, really cheap. I remember getting one, what's my name, Snoop Doggy Dogg, 99p or something like that, There was another record store around ours called Our Price and Music Zone. Music Zone would sell lots of like different stuff, and it was quite cheap in there. And also there was a market stall called Kaleidoscope Records in St Helens. And sometimes I'd buy like some rock records, like Iron Maiden and Guns N' Roses and that type of thing as well. Take it home and listen to them, and then create a cassette, because you couldn't take the records out of you to listen to on your Walkman, so I'd, dub a cassette from the records that I bought.
So when did it come that an interest in DJing took hold?
Not at that stage, maybe a little bit later on. So I get the Hard to Earn album, and the Pete Rock and CL Smooth Main Ingredient album. And then I really start taking notice of the scratching in the songs. I'm like, wow, that is cool. You know, what they're making the choruses and stuff, you know what I mean? With like little phrases from rap records. From making these like little cassettes and doing pause tapes and all of that type of thing, I thought, you know what? If I save up and get 2 decks and a mixer, I can do this like live rather than, you know, holding pause, queuing up the record, pressing record. And sometimes it wasn't straightforward. The needle would jump, or you know, you miss your cue or whatever. I thought, you know what, if I buy 2 decks and a mixer, I can maybe create mixes and then, you know, listen to them on my Walkman when I'm riding around on my BMX or whatever, you know. So yeah, it was around about 1996. That's when I first got some turntables, some belt drive turntables. I can't remember the make, but I remember they were whack. So they didn't have a pitch slider. They had like dials for the pitch. The mixer was like this really long, wide mixer. It didn't even have a crossfader on it. It just had upfaders and like loads of like graphic EQ stuff on it. You know what I mean? I got it from a magazine. It was like a, you know, a DJ pack. So you get 2 turntables, some needles. The needles were decent because you got some Stanton 500 needles, got head shells, you got these really cheap headphones with this coil wire and this mixer and all the leads and everything, and slip mats too. And I remember saving up, I think it was about £300, which was a lot of money back in 1996. You know, I was like just turned 18. Yeah, I remember saving up all my wages. I got it delivered to my house and I couldn't figure out how it worked. So I called up my friend DJ Crow, who lived close to me at the time, and he come round and he was like, "Oh, you need to put the belts from the motor onto the actual platter. You got to take them apart." I'm like, "Oh, okay,"
Right. You're
because
going to
it didn't
build
have
it.
no instructions as well. It just
Yeah.
like it just come as one thing. And yeah, he showed me how to do that. I was like, right, okay. So that's how they work, is it? It's working off this elastic band, is it? Like,
Okay, so you've got the decks, you've got the idea that, you know, you can start making mixtapes. I assume you move on and start recording stuff. Does it
yeah.
just stay for you, or do you then start handing it out to mates?
At the beginning, it was just for me. It was just something to do, keep me out of trouble, mix a lot of records, create some tapes. And then, you know, some of my friends that had got decks, and there weren't many people with decks back then, especially where I lived. What I do, I just like make a mix and then dub a few tapes out and just hand them out to my friends. And some people were like, "Oh yeah, I enjoy your music, what you play, and some of the stuff they'd never heard before." And then eventually, people got wind that I had decks, and it's like, "Oh, you know, I've got a house party. Do you want to come and play some tunes at the house party? Bring your decks and that." So yeah, I'm like, okay, let's have some fun. And I play a few house parties in Clotface region of St Helens and in the town centre as well. And yeah, some of them were wild and crazy times, you know. But you know, character building as well.
Built up from there, getting invited to do other gigs?
Yeah, eventually I'd end up in bars and just playing like, you know, an hour here, an hour there in different bars. Yeah, it just all went from there really. Eventually, you know, you start getting paid a couple of quid for doing a set here and there. What really pushed me was I ended up in a rap band called the Shakti. And I met these lads and they were from like Liverpool. I was from St Helens, so it's like where I'm from is like in between Liverpool and Manchester. Yeah, I started hanging out with these guys and doing lots of gigs with them as the DJ. I would get loads of opportunities from that. You know, we'd do gigs and then there'd be opportunities to actually DJ before we do our show and then after. And, you know, sometimes in between other acts as well, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And also my friend DJ Crow, he hooked me up with a few gigs. He moved to Birmingham. He got me involved with some gigs in his area. He was like studying at the Aston University, and there was, you know, a few opportunities to go and play out there. And yeah, there was a few opportunities to play around Liverpool and St Helens and Warrington and Manchester as well. Yeah, it was a good time. Lucky to be around all of them people. And then a little bit later, started like digging deep and getting into like the funk and soul, where the breaks are from and that kind of thing. And then incorporating, the breaks and funk and soul into my hip hop sets too.
And this is all still vinyl at this stage?
Yeah, all vinyl, all vinyl. This is like between 96 and 98, 99. So the
Okay.
first couple of years of doing it, really.
And how did it sort of progress from there? Did the gigs sort of get bigger, and are you sort of focusing more on scratching, or how does it work?
Yeah, around about 1998, I really got into the turntablist side. Like, I was always into the turntablist side, like, just experimenting with scratching to put on my mixes. But 1998 was the year when I first started battling. So the first battle I did was in Birmingham at the university with my friend Crow. We both entered, this. It wasn't like a major battle, but it was like, there were some good prizes, and it was like a, like a regional battle, and we both entered that, and I got the bug for it. And then that following couple of months, I ended up applying to do the DMC, which was in Manchester Boardwalk. I'm a bit young, a bit wet behind the ears, not know what what was expected of me. I'd seen the videos, I'd seen Cash Money and Rock Raider and Qbert and Cutmaster Swift on the videos. I'm like, I want to do that, In reality, I did it, and it's like, wow, this is a harsh environment. But it's fun at the same time,
Yeah.
and it's really, really character building. And yeah, and then my focus then was, okay, I'll do parties, I'll do gigs, I'll do stuff with a band and rappers and that, and I'm going to focus on this, turntablist thing as well.
So that was your first taste of the DMCs. Did you then sort of carry on with that, and then did you go back and enter again?
Oh yeah, I entered every year, up until 2017. I did it every single year from 1998, and yeah, I didn't have a break. I did it full on till 2017, and I progressed, every year. It took me a good few years to really develop my style and understand how it works and how the battle scene works and all of that, and how to present yourself and how to create sets. And this was all vinyl, especially in the early days. Well, right up until 2011, you could only use real records. So yeah, it was a fun journey.
Did you notice a big change in the switch? Because did you end up going digital as well? Did that change how you presented sets, how you scratched? Did it open up more possibilities?
Yeah, it did open up more possibilities, and it was exciting at first. The rule where you could use Serato come about 2011. So up until that point, I was just using records. But there was another point just before the Serato rule and the DVS rule in the competitions where you could press up your own records. You could get these custom records. And I used to use a company called the Carvery. Big up Frank Merritt, who was a really helpful guy who run that pressing plant. And he used to, have conversations with me on the phone. I'd send off my files, and he'd have conversations on the phone with me, and he's like, oh, you need to, like, master it like this, or you got to space it like this. He really helped me, and he would do really, really good pressings for me, and get them to me, very quick, in time for the competition and in time for me to practice on them just before the competition. So yeah, there was that era as well. So I've used like real records, original records. I've made my custom records, and I do that for a good few years. And then 2011, you could use Serato, all real records. But in the battle for supremacy, which is like a head-to-head tournament style battle, you could only use real vinyl in that competition. That went on until 2014. So I was entering both the classic 6 minutes showcase style battle and the head-to-head battle. So I'd do the Serato stuff in the 6 minutes and the real vinyl in the head-to-head battle. And it was good to have the best of both worlds, really, to compete on vinyl and on DVS.
And I guess, like you say, it's making you create different sets, because you know, the things that you can do with Serato that you can't necessarily always do with vinyl, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right. You can use cue points plus the needle. If you put it in like relative mode, it ain't gonna skip. You know, there's them type of things, but I don't know, it sounds different and it doesn't have the charm of like changing your records and putting the needle on the stick of the groove and doing them type of things and hearing that cue burn when you're backspinning and scratching certain samples that you've been practicing with. I don't know, it kind of lost its charm a little bit. But there was other cool stuff that you couldn't do, like you said, you know, with using the technology and using like the cue points or the loops, that type of thing, and you know, using whatever sound you wanted, you know, or sample you wanted. You could sample straight from the TV, or you could sample your voice. Yeah, you could do all kinds of cool stuff with the DVS. But I like them limitations on using vinyl because it forces you to be more creative, you know, using just records. It's like, okay, you've got these records, these are the sounds that's on the records. What are you going to do with them? You know, how are you going to flip them? How are you going to like change them or do like a remix or switch up the style or whatever?
So that sort of brought us, you said, till about 2017 when you sort of stopped entering the DMC. So what are you doing perhaps from that stage? And then we'll get to obviously the pandemic, sort of March 2020. But what are you doing between the end of your DMC entries and the pandemic?
2017 was a good year for me. I won the UK DMC and I won the UK IDA. I thought, right, I'll go out on a high here. I got to the World Finals. I did well in both World Finals, better in the IDA World Finals. And I thought, okay, I'll leave battling alone for a while. I was doing lots of things. I was doing a lot of gigs. I was teaching DJing. I got into booking DJs. I started my own little agency a little bit later down the line. And I just had my fingers in loads of pies, you know. And then, you know, 2020 come and the world changed.
Yeah, because I guess from, you know, pretty much everything you're discussing is events that are happening in the real world, and come the pandemic, you know, none of those events could happen. Was that at that stage, was that your main income? Or so okay, so it's not like you've even got a job to sort of perhaps fall back on, really. So how did that hit you?
Oh, it wasn't easy, if I'm honest with you. It was a weird time. Um, Yeah, so I was booking DJs, DJing in bars and stuff, and teaching. So everything I was doing was DJ related, or you know, I deal with human beings. You know what I mean? And 2020 come, you know, they said it's for a few days. Then they said, you know, just to flatten the curve, we're gonna shut everything down for 2 weeks, and then that was it. You know, after the 2 weeks, nothing was opening. I'm like, ah, okay, I'm running out of money here. I've got responsibilities. I've got rent to pay. Yeah, luckily I had some equipment to sell. So I was selling some equipment and a very supportive family as well that helped me out. I tried to get a job, you know, just a regular job working in Aldi and Tesco's and that type of thing. But everyone else had that same idea. So it was really hard to get, you know, a regular job or working in the warehouses, because I used to do that back in the days, you know, working the factories and warehouses and that. But they were just like swamped with applications because everyone else was in the same boat. Financially, it was really tough. I'm not going to lie, it was really tough. It wasn't a good time for me mentally. There was a lot going on in my life, and yeah, it was hard to wrap my head around. You know, this this is it now for the foreseeable. No one knows when things are going to open. It don't look like anything's going to open for a long time. So what am I going to do? So in order to combat that, I, you know, would always be creating stuff, creating mixes. I got a bit more into my production because I've been on and off with the production over the last few years. I got into streaming on TikTok.
Okay.
TikTok
How
started
was
taking off.
that? Yeah, streaming on TikTok.
Yeah, that was okay actually, because I used to stream on Instagram and Facebook around about 2016, and it was okay to do it. But when the pandemic come, they moved the goalposts, and then if you streamed on Instagram and Facebook, you just like get taken down if you was playing anything popular or whatever. Your stream would just get shut down
Yeah.
basically. So TikTok runs a bit differently from Instagram and Facebook, and yeah, you could get away with streaming more on TikTok. So yeah, I just got into doing that. I did a few things on Twitch for other DJs. They showed me how to do it, but I missed the Twitch bandwagon really. I didn't really start. I should have got a following then and really pushed it, but it was a lot of hassle setting up the OBS, and it just wasn't that user friendly. You know what I mean? And the space that I live in, it wasn't easy to do. You couldn't just do it on a phone at the time, which I found a lot easier doing it with TikTok, because you could just plug in your phone, get one of them iRigs, plug it straight from your mixer, get a live, a nice live feed from that, and it'd sound nice and clean. And I had a different audience on TikTok as well, and it wasn't necessarily I'm just DJing to DJs. I'm DJing to different people, you know what I mean? So yeah, yeah, it's good, and I still do it to this day. I still stream regular on TikTok, and yeah, I have a decent community, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Tell me about that then, because that's one of the biggest things here on Twitch. Obviously, I think different people found different platforms. I think a lot of us started Facebook, Instagram, and then obviously some of us went Twitch, some went Mixcloud, like you're saying, TikTok. Now, I didn't fully appreciate there was this big, potentially this other scene on TikTok, but each of the platforms has a different community, doesn't it? And it's amazing that you are able to build communities on different platforms, but you've got to address them, and they're not necessarily looking at everything you're doing. So what sort of stuff are you doing on TikTok? Is it scratch sets? Is it funk and sample sets? What are you doing on there?
A bit of everything. A bit of everything. So some turntablist sets, regular DJ sets. I do vinyl sets. I even do like little request spots and that type of thing. Sometimes I'll just do a mix, and when I finish the mix, I just like talk to the audience and engage with them. Sometimes I'll do like little tutorials, and I never plan on it. That's a good thing. I just do it as and when. My life is a bit random sometimes. To say I could do it every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock, my life doesn't work that way for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good. There's a decent community that I built up on there. Sometimes the views are low, sometimes the high. Nothing above. I think the most I've had is about, I don't know, 500 people watching at once. You know what I mean? But I'd say on average it's between, I don't know, 20, 30 people on average, which is decent. It's enough for a vibe.
Well, I think it is, isn't it? And numbers are one thing that people sort of sometimes used to worry about. But like you say, it's having quality over quantity, isn't it? If you've got 20 people who are into what you're doing, supportive, know each other, can have a chat, I mean, like at the moment, we got like 14 in at the moment, but everyone's friends with each other and they all interact, and hopefully, we are all friends. But any time that anyone spends on your channel is like a privilege, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's so much else going on. The fact that you can get to like 500 people watching out of all this other stuff that's going on in the internet and real life is still pretty impressive in this day and age.
Oh, it is. It is like, getting 500 people. That doesn't happen all the time.
It's happening.
Let me say that. But it has happened a few times, and I've been surprised. I'm like, oh, right. How come it's not like, I don't know how the algorithm works, but yeah, the odd time I've had like, 400, 500 people, I've been like, wow, I feel like a superstar right now,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's good. And the thing is, in this day and age, people's attention span is zero, and if you can engage with these people and, you know, they stick around and watch what you're doing. That is a massive privilege, you
It
know.
is. And
It's really
speaking of
good.
which, we have Claire7326 says great community on Rasp's TikTok. So there
Big
you
up
go.
Claire. She's a regular. Yeah, we have a really nice community, and we talk about music. We talk about other things as well. I like all this nerdy stuff, as you can see.
Yeah.
So we talk about all that. Talk about old movies, and we just have a laugh. Really, the odd time you might get the odd troll, but they just get dealt with, and you know what I mean. But you get that. Sometimes it can be funny having a troll and harassing you or giving you, some heckling or whatever. Sometimes that can add to the entertainment. But yeah, mostly it's a really, really nice community. Everyone's like-minded, that tunes in, and sometimes new people tune in. Well, new people tune in all the time, and sometimes they stick
Yeah.
around. And the good thing is, I can open it up so I can get other people. I've only recently started doing this, so I can get people to join in the conversation, like live, like we are doing now. So a little box will
Okay.
come up, and
So you
they
can
can
do that on
start talking
TikTok.
and
So
stuff.
invite them sort of on. Yeah. Okay. Because
Yeah.
it's one thing that Twitch has sort of offered. There's this thing called Stream Together, and I've been able to go onto other people's streams, but I've had difficulty getting people onto my stream. That's why I use Streamlabs, which is what we're doing today. But
Okay.
that's interesting to know. But I think you've got to get to, is it 1,000 followers on TikTok to then be able to
Yes.
live stream?
Yes.
So
You
that's the
need a
first hurdle.
1,000 followers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have 1,000 followers, you can't stream. And I think if you have, I think 10,000 followers, you get extra benefits. And I think the next one is 50,000 followers. And then after that, yeah, you get like extra benefits the more followers you have. I don't like all this numbers game, but I suppose that's just the way it is with this social media.
And I think it's just anywhere that you can build, like you say, community. And we talk about it on the site. It's a safe space, isn't it? Because you've got you as a streamer, you've got perhaps like moderators, you've got other DJs, people in your community, you've got viewers, you've got people sort of lurking who are listening and watching but aren't taking part because they're just happy just to be over there listening to what's going on and seeing what everyone's doing. So we're just creating safe spaces, and that's why it's a great community that vibe back, like you say.
Yeah, sometimes you get people who tune in, they're at work. Sometimes they work nights, they're doing the night shift or whatever. And yeah, they'll just tune in and chime in every now and again on the comments. Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice community.
So that sort of got you through the sort of middle of the pandemic. How did it come about when things started opening up again? Did you manage to get back into gigs, or did you have to sort of start from scratch again?
I got into gigs. Some of it was like starting from scratch. There was like the odd. Well, I'll say this. In part of the pandemic, there was the odd opportunity where there was like a little rave going on that wasn't supposed to be happening. So I'd get involved with some of them. No one was getting paid, but it was just good to do a nice
Party
little
again.
rave, a little party, where we're not supposed to be doing parties. We feel like naughty boys and girls just playing music and all dancing and having fun.
And then you feel about it bad now, and then obviously then turned out that all the politicians and all of them were partying anyway, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the ridiculousness of it.
yeah, well, I must admit, with some of that COVID stuff, I didn't comply with a lot of it. I didn't agree with a lot of it. I'll be totally honest with you. There was a lot of pressure from society to follow a certain rule or whatever, and I don't know, it just didn't wash with me. It just didn't feel right. It felt a bit weird. I don't know. It felt weird that, okay, everything got to shut down, but these big supermarkets are allowed to stay open. Does the magic plague not touch the supermarkets, but it touches the little businesses or the venues or whatever. Everyone got their own opinion about it, but me personally, I was like, I don't know, it just feels a bit weird. And then you hear about all these politicians having parties and the money and everything that got that got filtered and spent on certain things. I was like, oh. So, you know, when I got to do these little raves or whatever, I was like, yeah, why not? Let's have some fun. Yeah.
And especially
I
after
won't say
like,
where they was, you know, just in case. But yeah, it was a good opportunity, and you know, I play a lot of different types of music. So when I was doing a few of them, it was like drum and bass, jungle, that type of thing. You know what I mean? And yeah, we'd have a lot of fun doing it.
amazing. Air Adam came in earlier on.
Oh, big up
Uh,
her, Adam.
Well, as Air Adam's here, let's talk about Manchester, because I went to Manchester and we did an event there. I don't know, maybe 3 years ago now. It
Okay.
rained and the event had to be cancelled. It was typical
Oh no.
Manchester nonsense. But I went with T2 Funk. We went to the Manchester chip shop, the hip hop
Oh
chip shop,
yeah, yeah.
and obviously Air Adam's got some pictures there. But that's just shut down because I saw you were doing quite a lot of stuff there before that place shut down. So maybe tell us a little bit about that venue and how it's affected
Oh,
you, that sort of being shut.
that venue was amazing. You know, really good food, really good people that run it. Big up Ozzy, that one who's super passionate about hip hop, real genuine nice guy. And he was open minded about having events. Like I used to run an event there called Slice and Dice. So what I'd do, I'd use the chip shop space to host a DJ battle, a scratch battle, and to do scratch and turntablist showcases. I did a good few events over the years. You know, I think it's when we come out of the pandemic, so around about 2022. So I'd do a, you know, event maybe twice a year there, and it was always open minded, always let us do our thing, and yeah, really welcome him. And it's such a shame it got shut down. The word is in Ancoats is like a bit of a posh area now. It never used to be. It used to be a bit ghetto back in the days, but now a bit of a posh area, and there's lots of people living there, and the rates are just sky high. I don't know. I don't know his full business, but I just don't think that they could
Yeah.
afford to keep it going, which was a shame because used to have another event in there called Working on It, and I played there once, and that was a great event where people would come. That was a monthly thing as well. People would come with the NPCs or the SPs, and you just play beats, and it was like a really good for the beat making community. I did a set there one time. I brought a lot of 45s, a Vestax turntable, Pioneer mixer, and a loop pedal. And I did like a beat making live looping set there, and it was really open minded and yeah, really nice vibe. But yeah, it's a shame that Hip Hop Chip Shop has gone. They'd always play good music, always get good DJs in there, and the food was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you like your
The
fish
food
and
was good.
chips, it was a banging place to go.
Yeah, yeah. And the well, I never managed to get there for an event, but it wasn't the biggest place, was it? So, and I think it
No,
just everyone would end up outside, and it then becomes a bit more of a festivally sort of vibe, doesn't it? If people are sort of drinking and hanging out on the streets outside the venue, and it's amazing, isn't it?
yeah,
And from what Air Adam's saying as well, a couple of things. He's saying utility bills are a beast now.
yeah.
He says it costs a fortune to run a place like that. I think he said,
Especially in that part of the city in Ancoats,
yeah,
it
and
never used to be. Ancoats at one point was a no-go zone.
yeah,
you, you know,
I guess that's what's happening to sort of UK cities, isn't it? They're just
yeah.
changing, and it happens to
Oh
all of
yeah,
them.
the Manchester's changed a lot. I've been going to Manchester a long time. I'm from St Helens originally, and now I live in Warrington. So I live closer to Manchester now. I work in Manchester a lot, and I've seen that city change so much over the years. Yeah, it really has changed a lot. A lot of skyscrapers, areas changing and shifting and all that. And yeah, it's a big city, but I've got a lot of love for Manchester. I have a lot of love for Liverpool as well. Liverpool's a cool city, but Liverpool's not changed nowhere near as much as Manchester. There's little parts that are evolving, but Manchester, if you go back to the mid 90s, before the bomb and all of that, and then you go there now, it's a totally different place.
You've mentioned obviously 45s, taking them to one of these events. So tell me about why you love the format. Obviously picked them up from a young age, as you told us earlier, but why is it you still enjoy the format?
They're just fun, aren't they? You know, they're easy to carry, very collectible as well. Yeah, they're a lot more satisfying to DJ with. They're harder to DJ with. They're a lot more fiddly. But when you nail a set with 45, the satisfaction level is, you know, it's up there. You know what I mean? It's yeah, I just have a lot of fun playing them. I must admit, I've got more 12s than 45s, and you know, I was buying 45s. I was mainly buying 12s when I was young, but you know, there was a few 45s that I get every now and again. I got back into the 45 thing around about 2017, that era, and then yeah, I just built up.
What was it, or which DJs was it that got you back into it back then?
I saw some stuff with Jazzy Jeff and DJ Scratch, DJ Newmark. I saw him do some stuff on 45. I'm like, yeah, I get it. You know, I get why you want to do that. They're easy to cart around and they're a lot of fun. I watched some of his sets. Who else? Mr. Thing. I seen him flipping 45s, and you know, Mr. Thing's a massive collector, as is all of them DJs. But you know, Mr. Thing got proper deep crates, hasn't he? And yeah, seeing what they was doing, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get why people are getting into 45s again. You know, it just makes sense. You know, we're getting older. 12 inches, you know, they're not the lightest of things, are they?
I mean, also, do you think there's more? Obviously, I'm not a turntablist at all, but is there more for you? You said it's harder to DJ, but do you think it comes across more showman-like because people can see that it's a much smaller format?
Yeah, I reckon people like really take notice when you're doing some turntablist type tricks, especially on 45. They're so fiddly and yeah, more delicate than 12s. You know what I mean? With 12s, you can be a bit more heavy-handed. With 45s, they ain't that forgiving. You know.
Does that make you a better DJ, and does that filter through to other times when you're DJing with digital?
I think it gives you a lighter touch, yeah, and it gives you greater appreciation for stuff like Serato or you know CDJs. You know, I DJ on everything. I don't just DJ on vinyl. I'm open to like CDJs, controllers, Serato, everything. You know, depending on the situation or what I've been booked to do. But yeah, I have been getting opportunities in the last couple of years to play 45 sets, and it's great. And the great thing for me is not looking at a screen, taking the records out, choosing the records that I want to play. You know, usually it's just an hour set or a 2 hour set. I have done a few, you know, 6 hour bar sets or whatever, but it's like, well, these are the only records that I'm bringing out. So you're really into the selection thing. You know, when you're doing it on Serato, as amazing as it is, and CDJs, as amazing as it is, as the technology is, it can be very overwhelming that you've got all of this music, and sometimes it can be too much to process. Well, it can be for me anyway. But when I have like, you know, a crate of 45s, and before I do the gig, I think, okay, what type of people are going to be there? What type of audience is it going to be? Will they be liking these records? I think having the limitation makes you more creative in your sets and that type of thing. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's just nice as well, just flicking through, you know, a box of 45s and just pulling them out, putting them on the record. You feel it. It's got more soul to it, you know, than digital. I'm not saying the digital doesn't have soul, because it does. It's the person that brings the music alive. But I don't know. It's something about like going through your crates, picking out your record, chucking it on the turntable, queuing it up. There's no room for error with it, you know what I mean? On CDJs, you can get away with a lot more. Vinyl, and especially 45, you know, you've got to be really tight with it, basically. And yeah, it's more fun for me.
But like you say, it comes back to fun, and it comes back to limitations making you creative. You've just done a mix for 45 Day 2025, and as I said, at the moment, it looks like it's going to be premiered on 45 Days. So what have you done for that mix? What sort of stuff have you included?
There's a lot of hip hop stuff on there, some doubles, a bit of scratching, Dusty Donut stuff in there, some original stuff, some old stuff, some repress stuff. And yeah, I just had fun. I had a lot of fun putting that together. You know, I got the message off you the other night, and then I had a bit of free time on Friday, and I just spent all day looking through my crates, working out little sets. I did it in 3 takes. That so I did three attempts. The first attempt I did it, and the needle skipped. I'm like,
No.
and it skipped like probably a third into the set. I'm like, you know what? Nah, start again. So I reset everything, got up, stacked all my records up, did it again, and I got through it, but there was one or two little bits that was a bit, I don't know, just I just didn't nail the mixes, and I thought, you know what, I can do that better. And I did it. The last take, I was like, right, okay. It's not perfect by any means, but I was happy with the take, and I think I captured the moment well. So yeah, I had a lot of fun putting that together.
And that's cool. And I really appreciate you doing that. And it's why I keep doing this each year. You know, it's just sort of giving people saying, look, why don't you do it? You know, spend a bit of time, like you say, spend a bit of time picking some records, seeing what you've got, putting it together, and then just spending 45 minutes where you're just focused on that. And that comes back to the sort of mental health element, because we talk a lot about it on here. Like streaming for us is good for the mental health because you join your community, but it's also, it just keeps you present, doesn't it? For that 45 minutes, all you're doing is putting that mix together, and everything else hopefully just disappears.
It does. It escapes from the madness of the world, you know, and the world is a crazy place at the moment, you know, for lots of different reasons. And yeah, you're just in your own zone playing music. You're really connecting with it as well. You know, you're not looking at a screen or getting any distraction. You know, sometimes when you're DJing on Serato and or Tractor or whatever it may be, and your phone's like connected to your laptop, you can see messages ping up on your laptop, and it kind of distracts from what you're doing. You know, so when you're just dealing with 45s, you're just in that zone. You know, you're just thinking about the music. Are you gonna, you know, execute your next transition, or you know, your next scratch or whatever, and making sure it hits right, and yeah, you feel it more. Well, I do anyway.
Definitely. No, definitely. I echo a lot of that. We'll get to your sort of 345s that lift the spirits, but you've got your own 45, and you showed me what it was earlier, and I was like, yes, because I've got it myself and I know the label and who's behind the label. So tell us about this 45 that you wanted to talk about.
Okay, yeah. So a few years ago, pre-pandemic actually, I was in touch with a guy called DSK. Big up Nick, DSK, nice guy. We had the idea of putting out a battle break. He helped me out with this. He did some of the production. I did some of the production too. I'm a bit of a nerd. I like, you know, video games and comic books and all that type of thing. And I really like Street Fighter 2. So I got a lot of samples together, plus some traditional, you know, noises like hard and fresh. And we come up with this thing. Hadouken breaks.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's basically a 45. It plays on 33 res per minute, and it's like a skipless scratch tool. So it's just got loads of samples from Street Fighter 2 and all that type of thing. And we did 2 versions of it. We did the red fireball, and we did the blue fireball too. So there you go. There's still a few about. It's quite rare. It was a very limited pressing. So if you want one, get in touch. And yeah, it was a lot of fun putting that together. The artwork's amazing.
And obviously you see
we had Glenn Stone do the artwork.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, the artwork's just incredible, isn't it? And it's a proper decent picture sleeve. DSK puts out some amazing records. He's been a guest on the show. We celebrated his 50th. I think actually that may have been when we met, actually, because it was his 50th.
Yeah, it was his birthday. I missed him though. I missed him. Yeah. Did you have a good do?
Yeah, it was fun. It seems a long time ago, actually. I need to I'm so behind with doing recap videos and stuff. It's fun when I put them together and I'm like, yeah, this was a really great event. It's just bringing people together, like you say, like you do online or like you do on TikTok or on Twitch. It's just bringing people together, like-minded people, and it's going to be a good vibe, and it's quality, not quantity. It doesn't matter. You can have 10 decent people there. You're going to have that energy and talk to them and speak to them quite a lot. If you've got 100 people, you just can't speak to everyone, can you?
That's true.
That's the thing. I always ask my guests, because this is based on a question that we had from Mark Lancaster on the very first show, which Double P was on with Mr. Musto, who raided into us. So thank you, Mr. Musto. And we're also going to thank and say hello to Regulate Recordings. We've got Tony in the house. So he asked on the very first show, what 45s lift your spirits? So then we've decided to ask guests to decide 3 45s, and then that's led to the uplifting mix, which is 45 minutes of 45s that lift the spirits.
Okay.
So we've had about 80 odd mixes on that as well.
Wicked.
But 3 45s that you've chosen that lift your spirits, what are they and why?
Okay, the first one is a record, I've had a long time.
Yeah.
DJ Easy Rock and Rob Bass, It Takes Two. It's a classic. It's a classic. You play that at a hip hop jam or just a regular bar gig, everyone knows it. It's a banger. It's just a fun record. And this is one of the rare 45s that has an instrumental on the back of it too. You know what I mean? And you can do a lot of tricks with it. You can scratch with it. You can use the instrumental for rappers, or you can scratch over the instrumental, or you can just play the track. You can play on 33 and get some scratch techniques using, the drums and that. It's a really good pressing as well. Well, my pressing is, oh, it's a bit weird. The camera's back to front. There we go. So I've even got my little sticker on there. But yeah, I love that record. It's a banger. It just gets people going.
Well, I'm going to pause there for a second, because you mentioned obviously playing that at 33. Now I do slow-mo where I play 45s at 33 because of the different vibes I get. So are you using that technique obviously because it's something that you can then work into routines, and like obviously there's a break there, isn't there? And especially if you've got the instrumental, a slowed down break is still going to sound good.
Yeah, just we're doing tricks with it, chopping up the beats, like doing like beat drumming type of thing, percussive scratching. Yeah, you can get some really nice, interesting patterns by slowing it down to 33, flipping it back to 45. Yeah, it's a fun record to play about with.
So that was number one. What have you got for number two?
Okay, another fun record that I really love. I picked this up a few years ago, actually. Record store day. The Mohawks, The Champ. Can do so much with this record. It's such a happy vibe, and it's on the gold vinyl, and I just love playing about with this. I always have 2 copies. I think I've got about 6 copies of this, and I take this to every gig, and everyone knows it. It's fun, it's funky, and you can do so many tricks with it using doubles. You can scratch with it, you can beat juggle with it, you can backspin it, you can mix it in with loads of things. You can use the beginning champ, you can scratch and do all kinds of cool tricks with that. Yeah, it's just a fun record, and it's very uplifting, and it gets a party going. Crosses over to any, you can play at a hip hop party or a funk and soul party. Everyone knows it, everyone loves it, and
it's giving people what they know is always the first bit, but it's then, like you say, then chopping it up and doing something different with it, and especially doing that with 2 gold 45s. Again, it's that showmanship thing, isn't it? It must look amazing when you're doing it.
It's a lot of fun to play about with. It's so much fun, and the pressings that I've got have all been decent, actually. I've been blessed, because sometimes finding decent presses on 45s can be tricky sometimes, especially for the tableist. But it's a fun record. I like it a lot.
Cool. Right, last one of the 3 then. What have you chosen?
Okay, this is a bit of an odd one, but I'm a bit of a nerd. I like nerdy things, so I have the Planet of the Apes. It's a comic and a record.
Amazing. Yes, that's amazing.
So I've had this a long time. It has all like the speech and all of that, and on the record, it basically you read along and play it at the same time. That is such a good record. And
Amazing.
it's just such a good story. I just put this on every now and again just to listen to it. And I flip through the comic. It's got so many good samples, like speech samples that I can scratch along to. And you look at the artwork. I just love
It's so
that
cool.
70s artwork. I love the film. There's actually a film of this from the 70s. Yeah, it's brilliant story. Yeah, I just
I
love
mean,
love
look
that
at that.
type of thing.
I mean, someone with a lot of money needs to do that now.
Yeah,
Someone needs to do like a comic and that, but that's going to cost a lot of money, isn't it? Getting
it would.
a
It
decent
would.
illustrator. But
Yeah,
that would
they
be
are.
cool.
I don't know who makes it. It's Power Records, actually.
Yeah.
But I don't know who actually illustrates it. I'll probably tell you somewhere in here.
Yeah. That's
But yeah,
amazing.
it's brilliant. They have all kind. I've got other ones as well. Incredible Hulk, Star Trek, Superman, Spider-Man, Captain America. I've got all kinds. But this one in particular is one of my favorites. It's such a good story as well. You can just listen to it, and yeah, it's great.
That's incredible. It's been
Okay,
great talking. That hour has flown by.
yeah, it really
We'll
has.
definitely do a part two, and
Okay,
everyone remember we're going to be dropping. I'm not sure what time exactly, but it's going to be as part of the 45-day 2025, and that falls on a Sunday. So hopefully people will be able to tune in. I've seen a few little bits of it. I don't want to spoil the surprise for me because I'll probably be watching it live. I just want to make sure it works, and then I'll probably watch it
okay.
live so I can get the same vibe as other people. Thanks so much for being on the show. Thank you for your time. Have you got anything that you want to talk about coming up next? Have you got a gig coming up in the near future or anything like that?
Yeah, I have a few gigs coming up. I'm in a turntablist crew with the Two Nice crew, with a couple of lads from the Northwest, and we do like little turntablist shows, 4-man crew, all cutting it up. So we got a gig in Leeds at a b-boy event. That's coming up at the end of April. I've got an event in Manchester at Freight Island. I'm supporting Sparks and Pitch 92.
Nice.
So that's going to be fun. And I have a vinyl set in Runcorn with my
Okay.
friend Tough Tim Twist. And I'm going to be doing some like 45 set,
Awesome.
scratching, mixing, having fun, party rocking. And that is, I can't remember the date, maybe the 9th of May. I could be wrong. But yeah, looking forward to that. And yeah, I
Awesome.
have a record coming out, hopefully, on Live from the Groove
Yes.
Records. My friend Al, who part runs that label, I've done some stuff with him before, and he asked me if I'd be up for putting some stuff out. It's a two-sided thing. On one side, it's like a turntablist track, all composed from scratching. The drums, the bass, the vocals, everything is composed from scratching. And on the other side is more like a cut and paste style track, with like sample heavy drum breaks, spoken word records, that type of thing. So yeah, that's coming out very
That's
soon.
exciting. Yeah, definitely big up the live from the groove. Again, it's interesting the sort of connections. 'Cause obviously, Al English from up north. I know
Yeah,
sort of Dave and Cy and Trish and the people in the Get It Together crew down here, which is an interesting project they've got, isn't it? Because they've got the north and the south, and it's hip hop, and yeah, they're doing really good things. So
it's great. It's a great thing that they're combining
yeah,
both sides of the country together. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And they're putting out some really, really good stuff.
yeah. And
Um,
again,
you
it's
know,
bringing people together, isn't it?
yeah,
Bringing
yeah.
like-minded people together
It's a
in a
great thing.
community. Yeah, yeah. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Been an absolute pleasure. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's been a lot of fun. Take it easy.
Cheers.